Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch random movies and then talk about them. And if you're joining us today, you're here for one of our mini episodes, or sometimes maxi episodes, What You Watchin', where we talk about what we've been watching. And with me is, as always, is the amazing, the incredible, the Mark Spector to my Stephen Grant, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm enjoying that show is how I'm doing.
Yes. And
Other than that, I'm getting over a cold, so my voice may be a little different today.
It sounds great.
My voice my radio voice when I get a cold.
Exactly.
I'm doing good though. Getting over this cold, so it's going away. We'll get there. How about yourself?
Kyle? I'm doing well. I know you said before we started recording, you had a lot of movies to talk about. I had 3, so I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, let's get into this. I watched a lot of interesting stuff. So, first of all, it's been several weeks because we had to miss a week again. So I watched just a ton of crap. First off, on DVD, I watched a 2019 film called VFW. And yes, it's stands for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. But this movie is interesting because it's about a group of old, ex-military drinking beers in a VFW, and there's this drug kingpin in some abandoned building next door, and
next door.
That's convenient. Or down the street or something. I don't know. They're yelling at each other from the front doors, I think, at some point in the movie. They're chasing after someone, and that kid runs into the VFW, and then all these VFW have to defend themselves against this whole drug gang coming after him, attack him, and it's a lot of killing and a lot of death. And I can't believe I never saw this movie before and didn't even hear about it. I just heard about it, and this was from 2019. Stephen Lang owns the bar, and then you have William Sadler, Fred the Hammer Williamson, Martin Cove, David Patrick Kelly, and George Wendt.
Norm
in a bar.
Does he kick some ass?
Norm doesn't really know, but if that cast doesn't get you into a movie, I don't know if we can be friends. It was just a fun movie. The only complaint I had was it was all shot at night and the bar was dark, and there was a lot of scenes where I could not see worth shit. So they did not light it very well, and I was kind of disappointed because I was really digging the movie. It was always fun to watch those actors just having a good time and beating the shit out of people.
It almost sounded like the sequel to Roadhouse.
Right. No, that was a fun one. I recommend that one. If those actors' names get you excited, then go check out that movie.
Nice.
And then moving on with still going through our MCU, we rewatched Spider-Man: Homecoming. People know enough about that movie since No Way Home just came out. I'm sure lots of people rewatched Homecoming. And then on DVD, I watched a 1990 film called Miller's Crossing. This is one of the Coen brothers' few films that I hadn't seen before, and I really dug this one. It's about a guy who is kind of the right-hand man to, I think he's an Irish gangster, and he kind of plays both sides. There's another gangster on the rise, and kind of just plays both sides and kind of con man and gets people caught up and stuff. And it's just a fun gangster movie with its own kind of language too. The dialogue was really good. It was a Coen Brothers movie, so it might be one. Was it their first or one of their first?
It was pretty early because their first was Blood Simple, and I want to say Raising Arizona was closer, but I don't remember exactly where it falls.
Because I'm trying to remember the main actor's name. It was Gabriel Byrne. That's right, and he worked for Albert Finney. So great cast, and then a couple of Coen Brothers regulars like John Turturro's in it too. He's really great in there, and so I highly recommend this movie especially if you're a fan of the Coens. I can't believe I had never seen this before.
I like to imagine, what if it was David Byrne instead of Gabriel Byrne, so he was wearing a giant suit the whole time?
That would be amazing. Just dancing around, and it's hey, stop making sense, man.
They're just hey, same as it ever was.
Same as it ever was. Uh, so high recommend there. And then I watched. I've got a Sylvester Stallone Blu-ray set that I bought. I bought it mostly for Tango and Cash, which I've talked about.
Nice.
But I watched 1994's The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone and
Robert Z'Dar.
what's his face? Hades from
James
Hercules. James Woods. And James Woods being just completely unhinged in this movie is the only reason to watch it, because this movie doesn't. I don't even know if I say it doesn't hold up. I don't know if it was any good ever. Ex-military guy has a falling out with James Wood. James Wood starts working for a gangster, and then there's a lady, Sharon Stone, who ends up, dating this gangster, whatever, mob boss. I don't even know what he is, but bad guy. And then she hires Stallone to take him out because now he's like an independent contractor or whatever. And him and James Woods are explosive experts. So lots of bombs and stuff and big explosion at the end, which is kind of cool. And James Woods, it's a lot of fun to watch in this. But there is one scene where Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone have a sexy time scene in a shower.
Nice.
And I read something really icky, and I hope it's not true, but it probably is. I was like, oh, Me Too movement or moment. So apparently Sylvester Stallone, and I need to do more research, so I'm saying allegedly, because this was on the IMDb trivia.
Yeah, so who knows?
He said in an interview that Sharon Stone came up and said, I don't want to do this nude scene because I'm done. I don't want to do nude scenes anymore or something. And he said, can you not want to do a nude scene in a different movie because you're going to do it in this one? And then I don't remember what actor he said gave him a bottle of vodka or some black label something, and they got drunk. And then he said something about then we did the sexy time scene and whatever. So he got her drunk to do the scene.
That's gross.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's really icky.
Yeah, as far as Sharon Stone's, this would have been post Basic Instinct, so.
Yeah, and that's probably the point where she's like, okay, I'm done with nudity here.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, because, but yeah, not a great movie. And then just knowing that behind the scenes story, I was like, well, that's icky. So I don't recommend going back to that one. Other than, like I said, James Woods is just kind of crazy in this movie and fun. And then I got on Amazon Prime and watched a 1970 blaxploitation movie because I haven't seen one in a while, and I watched Cotton Comes to Harlem.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, this is about a reverend who's coming into the neighborhood and comes into Harlem. He's like, give me your money and we'll build a ship and we'll go back to Africa because we're sick of America and all its bullshit. And he takes all the money, and then he's going to he's basically swindling, all the black people in the neighborhood out of their money, out of the money they don't really have to spare in the first place.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so then there's a couple of cops after him, and then we get Red Fox in there too,
Yeah,
and then
this was one of his first screen roles.
Yeah, it was fun seeing him in that, and like his little shot at the end of the movie was great.
That's amazing.
So yeah. This wasn't spectacular. It wasn't the best blaxploitation movie, but it was a lot of fun. Car chases, fights,
a literal bale of cotton,
and a bale of cotton that's everybody's trying to find. run around in Harlem. I'd recommend it for a good time. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yep, that's a good one. It's a prequel. I'm pretty sure it's a prequel to Sanford and Son.
Yes.
Because indeed, I bet out of money, he has to come back to the U.S. and start up the scrap business. You big dummy.
Right. I lost all the money. And then on DVD, I watched a 2019 film called Ema. And going into this, I did not realize it was from the same director as Jackie and Spencer.
I see.
And although the acting was good in those, I didn't really care for those movies. And this one I didn't super care for either. There's some dancer and her and I don't know the main actress's name, but the main actor who played her kind of ex-boyfriend was what's his name? Gael Garcia Bernal?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in it, and he was like a dance instructor, and she was a dancer, and they were together for a while, and they adopted a kid or something. And then something happened, and they gave the kid back. There's a incident with a fire, and then she comes up with this cockamamie plan to get the kid back, and involved sleeping with a lot of people and whatever. And I don't know. It was a pretty movie. That's one thing I'll give this director is very beautifully shot. His movies are well acted. I just don't care for the movie themselves. So,
And this one was probably more, I guess, purely fiction and like stuff like Jackie, which was probably inspired by some or had some real events part of it.
yeah, Jackie and Spencer were
Yep.
both and yeah, this one was purely fictional. So and then on DVD I rented a movie called Mass from 2021. This one was mostly, there were a couple other parts like bookending the movie, but it was mostly four people in a room. It was a 2-hour movie, and it was Jason Isaacs, Martha Plimpton, Reed Birney, and Ann Dowd. And this was like two couples. Martha Plimpton and Jason Isaacs were a couple, and they were going into a church to meet with another couple. And Plimpton and Isaacs, they had a kid who was killed in a mass shooting. They were going to meet the parents of the shooter who also shot himself. And this was like a 2-hour movie of both couples just sitting in a room and talking. And it was captivating, and it brought up a lot of good like things. And the acting was so wonderful in this. I really recommend this film. It brings up a lot of good sides to being the parents of both the victim and the shooter.
Because it is definitely a tragedy for everyone.
Yes, and kind of pointing out that yes, there some of it can be the parents' fault and how they raise them, but some of it can be like they didn't see the signs, or they tried to fix it and they saw, you know, there was problems and they tried to fix it, but then, you know, there's so much more than just it's your fault. You know, like, you know, you don't know everything, and then even the parents aren't going to know everything because how can you? And both sides are racked with guilt already. So it brought up a lot of interesting points, and there was a lot of good conversation, and the ending was really great because it's not like anything was really resolved, but it was cathartic for both couples. And that I thought that was a good way to end that, where it's not like, oh, we came up with whose fault it is. Well, no, we don't. You know, you just need to learn how to move past it and everything. So, just super well acted, and I highly, highly recommend this movie.
So, do you know if this was based on a play or anything? Because that sounds almost like it could be a play of some sort.
I don't know if it was, but I would not be surprised because, it was a single setting for 4 characters for 90% of the movie. So, and like I said, it was 2 hours, and I was in it the whole time. I, just glued to the screen. That's with their great performances. Yeah. Then on a happier note than that dour topic, family movie night we got on Disney Plus and watched Turning Red from this year.
Nice.
Have you seen this one yet?
Yes, I did. It's so much fun.
I loved this movie. It was interesting to see the animation, especially for a Pixar movie. It was almost like bubbly anime kind of. Just the characters were so great, and the friendships between the girls were awesome. And I liked that there was never that moment of, towards the end, there was a little bit of, oh, I kind of turned on my friends a little bit, but like that was quickly gotten over. And I like to see that there was like friendship through and through with the kids, and they were very supportive. And it's about a girl who learns that her ancestors have like this history of turning into giant red pandas at a certain time in their life at a certain age. And yes, for all those people that complained about it, there is a tie to a child getting their period, but it's briefly mentioned in the movie, and it was about so much more than that, I think.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts was just when it was like when the mom was just like listing off all the different kinds of products that they had. Hey, Pat, we got this kind, this kind, this kind, this kind, this kind.
Yeah, and that was the extent of even mentioning that aspect of it. So, but I think it was also mostly about embracing yourself and being who you are, and the friends that like accept you for who you are, and that's those who your true friends are. So, but and then it was just a fun movie on top of that. So
Also, special
Because
shout out to James Hong, just being cool.
is that who played the dad?
No, James Hong was the old guy who helped do the ritual, like the neighbor.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of great characters in this. I recommend that one as well. And then moving on, I started listening to I have you heard of the How Did This Get Made podcast with
Oh yeah.
Paul Scheer? Well, I didn't realize, but for a couple of years he's been doing with another lady, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head. They've been doing another podcast called Unspooled, and they go through the AFI Top 100 list from 2007 and watch all the movies. Well, they kind of watch them in not like sequential order, but like I've been listening to that and kind of watching along. So the first episode they did was Citizen Kane, the number one movie. And so I have a copy of Citizen Kane and I watched it for the first time in like 20 years and it's okay. That was my basically my reaction when I watched it 20 years ago, but I was like, it's probably kid who didn't know any better, and it's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be the number one movie all time. I'm going, I've seen so many better movies. It's okay. I understand the cultural impact, the Orson Welles did everything, that all of this history, whatever behind it. But the movie itself, sure, there's innovative shots and all this stuff, but it's like the movie itself is just okay. It's about a news reporter trying to figure out what a newspaper mogul meant when he said Rosebud when he died. And so you get like kind of most of the movie is just a flashback to Charles Foster Kane's. I almost forgot his name, even though he goes in the movies, "I'm Charles Foster Kane." But yeah, it's a good movie. I recommend it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I really like this one, and I think it could be a lot of fun, but also I think structurally, just from a screenplay perspective, I do like the idea of, flashbacks of different characters representing, different parts of his life. So that way, you never really can see, because obviously, he's dead at the beginning of the movie. So you never really get to see the whole person. It's just different perspectives on some person. Which I always thought is kind of a fun device to use. In like sort of Rashomon sort of way.
Yeah, because you're getting like the perspective of the different people he's interviewing.
Yep, first was like there was his ex-wife, there was like his butler, there was the memoirs of his mentor.
Yeah. So I don't think it's the number one movie of all time in my eyes, but what do I know?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's definitely, you can learn a lot from it and a lot of good things from it.
Yeah. So next I watched on DVD, I think I got this one from Netflix DVD, 1988 film called Shoot to Kill. This one was fun. I wish I liked it more than I did. This was another interesting cast movie that I was like, why have I never seen this movie? Sidney Poitier plays a detective who's after this killer who kidnapped someone and shot them, and they stole some jewels, and then they killed someone, and then they got away. So Sidney Poitier is after them, and he goes to he tracks him down to like these remote woods. I don't know where it was. I don't remember where it was, but anyway, the killer gets into a pack of hikers out in the remote woods and led by Kirstie Alley. And then in the group is like Richard Mazer and Clancy Brown and a couple other actors. I can't remember who else was in it, but those were a couple of them. And then and the boyfriend of Kirstie Alley end up teaming up with Sidney Poitier to track them down and find the killer. And because he's got a stake in it, because he's, Kirstie Alley's boyfriend, and he was played by Tom Berenger.
I was really hoping he was going to be played by Rod Steiger.
Right. Yeah, because he would have still been alive at that point. But this was kind of a fun movie. 80s cheesy fun. I'd recommend it as like a lazy Sunday afternoon movie. If you want an interesting cast again, I've found a few interesting cast movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then on HBO Max, I went to another classic and watched 1976's Network, because I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I've never seen it.
This one's really interesting. Like, there's so much more to it than that scene, and like that's what people remember this movie for. And it's kind of like they're exploiting him. Like, they're going to fire this news anchor, and he goes crazy on air. And then, is it Mia Farrow? Yeah, I think that plays this lady who's like all about the ratings and wants to get him back on the air and keep him as this crazy old fool, and because it's increasing the ratings and everything. So, and then there's another guy that's in and out, played by God, I'm drawing a blank on names today.
Ned Beatty, I know he's in that.
No, he plays like the kind of the head of the whole thing. I want to say Robert Mitchum was the guy, or no. It was William Holden.
Nice.
So
Was he shirtless?
No, I don't think he was.
Okay, because William Holden was shirtless in his movies for a very long time.
Oh, very nice. Robert Duvall was also in this, and like you said, Ned Beatty. This is a good movie. This one's a classic for a reason, so I would recommend that one if you haven't seen it. And then on Hulu, I watched 2016's The Nice Guys because I just like to watch that every once in a while. I've already talked about that on this podcast because
It's a good one.
It's awesome, so I don't need to say much more about that. And then the next episode of Unspooled I listened to, they talked about Ben-Hur, so I watched that. It's on HBO Max. From 1959.
That was my question.
Yes.
Versus the
this was
version versus the one that no one remembered. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, which one no one remembered?
The more recent one from like the 2017 or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did remake it, didn't they? No, this was the Charlton Heston 1959 one, the 3-hour epic. Really cool stunts with the chariot race, which a lot of people know this movie for, but that's in like the last 20 minutes of the movie, you know? And then there's this whole Jesus through line that seems kind of just put in there. He was born around the same time as Jesus, and then there's the whole Easter resurrection thing at the end, Jesus getting pinned to the cross at the end anyway. And then there's a leper colony in there, and
Drink
basically
Ben-Hur, as Mr. Burns.
Basically, Judah Ben-Hur is this prince in Judea, in Ben-Hur. I can't remember the name of the area. I'm bad with names tonight. Must be the cold.
Nazareth.
But anyway, the Romans are taking over, and he's got a friend who was a childhood friend who was the leader of the Romans taking over his area, and then they kind of have a feud, and then he gets put on a slave ship and all this stuff, and comes back and gets his vengeance. And there's a lot of space in this movie that could be cut out of the 3 hours, so it does feel a little long at points. Nicely shot. I do have to say that Charlton Heston is probably one of the worst actors in Hollywood history. He's not a good actor.
But he's charismatic as all hell.
He is. He's just a terrible actor, though. I mean, I love watching Planet of the Apes. Doesn't mean he's a good actor, though. But yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of a long one to get through. So I don't know if I'd really recommend it. Just go watch the chariot scene.
Well, it does have an intermission.
It does have an intermission, so you could stop there. But the intermission, like I actually made this a 2-night viewing, and I'm like sitting there watching. It's 3 hours. I'm going, my God, when does the intermission come? It comes at like 2 hours into the movie. So then you only have like an hour left. I'm like, you should put this like an hour and a half and just cut it in half. Mm-hmm. Can we just like take it out and insert it into the middle? Oh, okay. But anyway, then I watched another movie on DVD called The Wicker Man from 1973.
The good version of The Wicker Man.
Yes, and I was a little worried because I've seen the Nicolas Cage one, because I was like, I watched that because of all the clips you see. Oh, the bees. I'm like, oh, the funny clips you see online, that's the only thing worth watching. So like about 5 minutes of it. The other bit is nigh unwatchable.
What's
of the Nick Cage.
A shark or something?
but the 73 version with Christopher Lee is really good and really eerie. And this man, this police officer goes to this island investigating a missing girl, and he gets caught up in this the cult of the island. They are like this pagan kind of religion there, and he gets caught up in this, and bad things happen. And it's just kind of a creepy movie and eerie and really good.
Yep. And Christopher Lee wears a dress.
He does wear a dress in
He
this.
looks great.
Christopher Lee can do anything. I don't care. He's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another recommend. And then on Tubi TV, I watched a 1980 film called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. And in this one, I realized that he played writers a lot because he was a reporter in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Death Trap, he was a playwright. And in this movie, he was a playwright.
It's all connected.
And so this one is this weird thing where like he's celebrating a play that he wrote, and then some really old lady comes up to him, hands him a stopwatch, not a stopwatch, a pocket watch, and says, "Come back to me." And then like 3 years later, he realizes who it was because he stays at some hotel in Chicago and was like, "Oh, there's something weird about all this." And then he learned from reading a book from some professor about like going back in time by like hypnotizing yourself. And so he hypnotizes himself to go back 68 years and meet this woman played by Jane Seymour. And they fall in love and everything. And it's really interesting because it's like this weird, you go into a trance and you go back in time. So it's like, is it just your mind? Like, how did that work? You just disappeared into thin air and went back in time. I don't know. But it was an interesting movie and it was good. And I would recommend checking this one out if you haven't seen a lot of Christopher Reeve's work.
I would double feature this one with Time After Time, which is what if Jack the Ripper stole the H.G. Wells's time machine to go to the present of like 1999. Nice. It's a killer premise.
Next on Blu-ray, I watched the 1939 Wizard of Oz because I own this one, and that was my next unspooled movie that I listened to a podcast of. And this one just still holds up. This one was one of my kids' favorite movies when they were young. And I've seen this one a lot, and it really zips. Like, there is no wasted time. Like, you remember everything that happens in this movie, and you're going, this is only like an hour and 40-some minutes, and you're going, oh, this still has to happen. This still has to happen. There's only like a half hour left in the movie. And so it just moves along, and so wonderfully acted by everybody.
Plus, I love how they maximize the Technicolor with the sepia in the beginning and the end. And
yeah.
The transition from the sepia to the color
when she walks out the door,
how they actually just had to paint that part of the set sepia.
Yeah, and apparently painted the back of her dress too. Yeah. So yeah, that was it's such a good movie. And like, if you haven't seen this, watch this with your kids. It's wonderful. I don't need to spend much.
That Tin Man has a gun for one scene.
He does. They pointed that out on Unspooled, and I was like, I don't think I ever paid attention to that before. And then I watched. I'm like, oh my god, he does.
They pointed out on the riff tracks as well.
That's funny. He's got a pistol. Like, where'd you get that pistol, Scarecrow?
Where did it go?
Right? He just stuffed it in his straw. Or no, it was the Tin Man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he stuffed it in the straw man's, in the Scarecrow's straw.
Maybe.
Then I watched another classic on Vudu from 1988 called Maniac Cop.
Boy, you're stretching the definition of classic on that one.
The William Lustig classic, written by Larry Cohen, I think, starring Robert Zadar as the Maniac Cop, and also Tom Atkins and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I know Bruce Campbell wasn't one of them.
Yeah, he was just in the first one. This is about there's someone killing people in New York, and he's dressed like a cop, and Tom Atkins is on the case, and finds out that it's a cop that they thought was dead, and Bob's your uncle.
Aren't there like four of those?
Yeah, at least 3, because I watched 2 and 3 actually a few months ago because 1 was not on streaming and now it is. And so I watched 2 and 3, and I've actually talked about those on this podcast. Nice. So I love it. I love Maniac Cop. And then the final Unspooled that I watched this time, they talked about Swing Time from 1936. Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers flick.
This movie is great except for one scene.
Yeah.
And you know exactly what scene I'm talking about.
I'm assuming Mr. Bojangles.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the problematic blackface, which happened. It happened in those days, and
I always skip through that scene.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about those scenes because it's like if it's one scene in a movie, like you said, this movie's actually kind of fun the rest of the time. I liked the side characters in this a lot.
Yeah.
So this guy is going to marry a woman, and the father-in-law doesn't like him, so he says, "You go and earn $25,000. You can come back and marry my daughter." And so he goes to New York, and he's a gambler, and hijinks ensue, and he's also a dancer, and he literally runs into Ginger Rogers, who teaches a dance at a dance school, and then they find out that they both love dance, and they start dancing at like these clubs and stuff. And then there's another guy that wants to marry her, and hijinks ensue. And this one really runs by on its side characters. The best friend of Fred Astaire and the best friend of Ginger Rogers, they end up being a couple, and those guys are hilarious.
Yeah.
And so this movie's kind of fun, just fun and witty and quick.
I do love a good character actor in a comedy.
Yeah. So it really hinges on those, and then you get to watch great dancing from Astaire and Rogers in between, like the funny side characters. So I would recommend this one. I had a good time watching this. It is not streaming anywhere, unfortunately. I rented this one on DVD. So, and then the final movie I watched today because I stayed homesick today, and every time I stay homesick, I watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil from 2010. So I've probably talked about this movie too. This is my comfort food when I'm homesick, nice. Which seems weird, but I love it. I'm not even go too much into it just because I've talked about this one probably a couple of times on this podcast. So go back and listen to other episodes.
Yeah, I just really love just the sheer like coincidences that happened. It's like,
yeah, the writing is
killing themselves.
The writing is so clever in like they make it so believable that the misunderstandings would happen. And that's one of those things where it's like, 90% of rom-coms do it terribly. And like the misunderstandings are like, oh, you guys are just dumb. And like this movie, you're like, you get all these misunderstandings. You're like, oh, it totally made sense there. like the part where he saws into a beehive, and then he's running away screaming, but he's still flailing the chainsaw, and the guy thinks he's chasing him. So yeah. I don't know. This movie, I get a kick out of this movie, and there are some bloody scenes in it because there is some bloody kills, but actually, my daughter and I both stayed homesick today, and she watched it with me. She got a kick out of it. Yes, nothing brings the family together like crazy hillbillies and college students. But such a fun movie, one of my favorites. So that's what I've been watching. I watched a lot of a hodgepodge of stuff, but some good stuff. What do you got for us?
Well, I watched 3 movies because I was much busier in my time. So let's start at the beginning with movie number 1. This was Pinocchio, A True Story, which is, I believe, a Belgian film. And then for the English dub, they got Pauly Shore to be the voice of Pinocchio.
Oh, no.
John Heder to be the voice of his best friend, who's also a horse.
Oh, my.
It's like, I'm Pinocchio, father, stop, and it's the same. It's not great, but it's kind of fun for just the weirdness and just the badness that is some of the voice acting.
Did he say, I'm Pinocchio, buddy?
Not quite. He might as well have. And because he's made of wood, not as much stuff hurts him. At one point, he just gets shot, but he's okay.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It very much feels like this is for preschoolers.
Oh.
I mean, it's one of those. It's one of those like mom or dad needs to get some stuff done, so little Timmy and little Tammy are gonna just sit in front of the TV for 90 minutes.
So was it actually harmless?
Yeah, it's fine. With weird acting choices, but overall it's fine. It's kind of like a fun, goofy love story, but his nose never extends, so I, for one, am disappointed in that.
How do you have a Pinocchio story without an extending nose?
That's what I thought.
He must have never lied.
I guess.
It was a true story.
That's true. It's very true. All right, so moving on, I watched Fantastic Beasts 3, The Secrets of Dumbledore, and boy, was this one just kind of dead in the water. There were parts of it, because have you seen any of the Fantastic Beasts movies?
I've seen the first 2. I thought the first one was fine. The second one, I was like, I'm done with this series.
Yeah, with the third one, there was a part where I was watching it with my fiance in the theater, and I would just turn to her, I was like, remember when these movies were about animals?
Right? Wait. Fantastical animals, you might say?
Yeah, because this would have made these movies work. Instead of caring about including the plot that we don't care about with this whole Schmindel Grindelwald. But hey, at least Grindelwald was played by Mads Mikkelsen this time, so he's very
Nice.
charming. Like, I couldn't see someone being behind Johnny Depp with that weird hair.
Right.
But Mads Mikkelsen as like a cult, yeah, I could see that.
I mean, Mads Mikkelsen as like a suave bad guy. I mean, look at Hannibal. You're like, I dig this guy. He's awesome. Oh wait, he eats people?
That's not awesome.
That's not awesome.
I could see why Dumbledore was in love with him at one point.
Right.
Yep, and I think Jude Law does a good job as sexy Dumbledore. Although some people might argue with that, depending on how you feel about Richard Harris or Michael Gambon. So yeah, and then Newt is there because, I don't know, he has to be. And he ends up working to try and fight Grindelwald because apparently there's this wizard election coming up. And so, like, these two main candidates, I guess, and then Grindelwald is like suddenly becomes eligible to become like a third candidate after he's like sort of, acquitted of all crimes.
Are they electing like zookeepers?
No. This is like Wizard President of the World, which you think we would have heard about in any of the other movies. Definitely not something made up just for this one.
Oh, so it's still not about fantastical beasts?
Oh, no, there is a fantastic beast in this one. There's a couple. This one, there's this deer-like animal called the Chillin, which is like super magic and super rare, because what this one does is that like it can see into your soul and tell if you're a good person or a bad person. So if you're a good person, it will bow to you. If you're a bad person, it won't do anything.
Awesome.
So the beginning of the movie, Newt happens to be like, doing his zoological stuff with this Chillin, and then he finds a baby one, and then the baby one gets stolen by the bad guys. Then he finds out that, it was actually twins. There's a second baby one.
Okay.
So then the first baby one is killed and then like brought back to life through like a weird curse. But then the second one is still alive the whole time. And then did you remember that Ezra Miller was in these movies?
Yes.
I forgot about him, but he's here, and he's apparently, like, related to the Dumbledores in some way. And if this sounds like I'm just making stuff up, because it feels like that in a little bit, but, it's this is bad. And apparently if this movie doesn't do well enough, there's originally, apparently at one point there was a plan to be 6 of these.
Oh, Jiminy.
And now there's going to be 5, but if this one doesn't do well, it'll just be the end of the series.
What? Boy, they sound like they got a lot invested in this.
But Jacob, remember Jacob, the human character? Just the regular guy?
Yeah.
He's still in it.
And I liked his character from the first movie.
And he's still the best part.
That's good to know. Ezra Miller's just blowing everything with all these arrests in Hawaii.
So I was thinking, he needs some help. Anyway, so don't go see this movie. Watch scenes of it on YouTube. There's a fun sequence where he has to go and break his brother out of prison. And
I don't think I was ever planning on watching this movie after seeing the second one.
Yeah. I mean, it's better and it's worse. But yeah, don't watch it. I just wish that the movies just would have done like an anthology series where it's just Newt Scamander going to different environments, having fun with animals in 90-minute increments.
I know. I thought that's where they were going to go, and they're like, "No, we need to do the Dumbledore storyline. Let's do that because everybody loves Dumbledore." Well, then why'd you call it Fantastic Beasts? I don't get it.
Why didn't you just call it Sexy Dumbledore and Friends?
Sexy Dumbledore.
And lastly, I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, the new film by the creators known as Daniels. 2 guys both named Daniel. They created the classic Daniel Radcliffe film Swiss Army Man, where he plays a farting corpse talking to Paul Dano on an island.
I've been hearing a lot of buzz about this movie, and the fact that they're the ones who directed it, and they did Swiss Army Man. I'm intrigued.
Oh, it's great. So this one stars Michelle Yeoh as a woman. She's a Chinese immigrant with her husband. living in the U.S., and so she's just trying to do her taxes on their laundromat that's not doing so great. And at the same time, she's having trouble with her daughter. And at the same time, her husband is there, but just kind of not. She doesn't have the best relationship with her husband right now, played by Ke Kwe Han, or Juan, I believe, a.k.a. Short Round. That's right, he's back.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
He's back, and he's great. And then James Hong plays the grandpa because, if you need an Asian guy since the 1950s, it's James Hong as a Chinese. So then, he's coming from trying to visit. He's in his 90s. And then she's worried because, her daughter is dating another woman, so she doesn't want to tell grandpa the truth. And then her daughter's, really having a tough time, dropped out of college. And then, they might have an issue with their taxes with the IRS agent, played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Cool.
But so basically how it happens was then all of a sudden, her husband changes, takes off his glasses, says, I'm not your husband, I'm your husband from another universe, where there's this extreme evil entity that can see all the universes at the same time and just going around destroying universe to universe. So eventually to destroy the entire multiverse. So she has this technology that lets her peer into another universe and another version of herself, and then she can borrow those person's skills. So for example, this one, she's a movie star who knows martial arts, and in this one, she's blind, but she's still really good with her hands. And then there's another one where she's a hibachi chef. So then it jumps around to all these different universes, so she has to fight against bad guys who are working for this evil person, in addition to while slowly fighting against her husband's her dad is also running this organization from another verse called the Alphaverse. So we jump around between a bunch of different universes, and there's some it's really funny because the way to access another universe is you have to do something weird and random. So for example, one of them is give yourself 4 paper cuts on one hand. And then there's one really funny where to gain fighting skills, one of the bad guys has to put something up his butt, and then there's a trophy that they point out, and there's IRS Agent of the Month trophies in this office building that kind of look like a butt plug. So then there's this whole scene where he just shows him just dropping his pants and then just trying to jump right on it, and then Michelle Yeoh has to grab it and keep it from him.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
And then there's one universe where they're just rocks because human life never started. So then Michelle Yeoh's just a rock with googly eyes. And then when she's still talking to the bad guy, there's just text.
That sounds amazing.
Yep.
I need to see this.
It is highly recommended. Really sweet. I love the relationship between her and her family and her daughter. And it's good to see Ke Kwe Han back, because he was great as Short Round way back when, but he still got it.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see him do more movies. I heard an interesting fan idea where what if he took over the Indiana Jones franchise?
That'd be awesome.
Where Short Round came back as an adult and is now a trained archaeologist or something.
Why wasn't he in number 4?
Because he retired from acting for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And then it was this, and then movies like Crazy Rich Asians that made him want to come back.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to this movie.
Yeah, highly recommended. It's bonkers. There's nothing quite like it, and it's so good. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's so many just weird and strange jokes. At one point, she's trying to make a reference to Ratatouille, but then she can't remember the name of it, so she calls it Rakakuni. I think it was a raccoon.
Nice.
And then, she finds out in the other universe where she's a hibachi chef. There's another hibachi chef who's, better at her, who's better than her at everything. And then, she goes into the kitchen, takes off his chef hat, and there's a raccoon controlling everything in a Ratatouille situation. And then instead of just a one-off gag, that plot, that guy keeps coming back. And he gets his own little plot that gets resolved by the end of the movie.
Amazing.
So that's everything I've seen. So I highly, highly recommend Everything Everywhere All at Once. The other one's meh.
All right. I had a few that I recommended as well, so hopefully people have stuff to watch now.
Hopefully you find some good ones.
What are you planning on watching next?
Well, I want to go back to the theater recently for 2 reasons. First is The Northman from the new Robert Eggers film, which looks like a really cool Viking movie.
Okay.
And then also, I can't wait to see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where Nicolas Cage plays a version of himself.
Yes, I'm excited for that one too.
Everything goes full circle.
Sweet. I'm as we're recording this is the week that The Batman dropped on HBO Max, so I'm finally gonna watch that this weekend. So that's my next watch for sure.
I hope you enjoy it.
I hope I do too. I've been
wonder
looking
if they're
forward to
ever
this
gonna
one.
make any more of movies about this Batman character. He seems pretty popular.
I know. I don't know. This might be the last one they'll ever make, ever.
I mean, I've never heard of him before. One thing, my biggest complaint about the movie is that they never really gave an origin story about this Batman guy. Where did he come from?
I don't.
What's his motivation? Why the bat?
Why bats?
I don't get it.
Maybe I'll find out in The Batman.
I don't know, man. Maybe.
So,
I just wish we had more flashback sequences to like whatever happened to his parents. They never explained that.
I know. I haven't seen that yet either. But anywho, until then, you can catch us online on the Twitter at AwesomeKM.
And I'm at Noah_Saturn. That is spelled SATERN.
And we're on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch. You can email us, we don't know what to watch at gmail.com. And until next time, keep watching.
Riddle me this, Kyle, man.